Okay.
Or
Should be live.
there you go.
Let me know when you repost it. And
Bam. I think we're going.
boom. I got some people coming in. All right. I'll just, for the sake of the recording, I'll just welcome you and we kick it off. Yeah.
Sounds good, bro.
All right. All right, Eric V. Stacks, welcome back to Bitcoin
Yo.
for Millennials.
How you doing? It's been a minute.
Yeah, man, I was just actually looking it up. You are like episode, I think 60 or something. So and this is episode 215. So it's been a while since we actually recorded something. I think last time we also streamed it. So why not do that again? And yeah, I think a lot of stuff has happened in the meantime. We both had a new kid. We're still into Bitcoin. We're riding the wave, the cycle. So
Yep.
I think a lot of stuff has changed, and I just told you like before we started recording, like I'm kind of in two big topics now that I also want to focus on for the podcast, and I think one thing is just really like, what is the big picture of Bitcoin? Like, why is this such an important thing? And I remember when, I found you online, you were posting videos from the cannabis farm, being super pumped, super grateful. I don't have my bag, but I have a pin on my bag that says super pumped, super grateful.
Thanks to my buddy David. Made
Yeah,
those pins.
shout out to David. So yeah, maybe that's an interesting place to start. Like I would just love for you to kind of reflect on maybe your last year, and also how you are keeping this big picture kind of in mind, and maybe also how that developed now that you're also co-hosting What is Money with Robert Breedlove. So I think you also heard a lot of different perspectives again on Bitcoin, and not just your own tinkering.
Yeah. What's kind of interesting is in some ways I almost feel more confused now than I did like a year and a half ago. I would say the underlying thesis is still there, but maybe I'm going through a process of like transforming as an individual, or kind of really focusing on getting right with myself. What do I believe? Who am I? Why do I behave the way that I do? And like, what do I want for myself and my family in the future? And I think that could be common for Bitcoiners. You come to this conclusion that Bitcoin is the best place to put your economic energy. And then what? You're like, it's kind of, it reminds me of a Forrest Gump moment where he like runs in and tells his mom, like, hey, we got this big contract for this ping pong paddle company or whatever. And his mom's like, yeah, we don't have to worry about money anymore. And he's like, yeah, it's just one less thing, And so simplifying your economic strategy, I think, is really, really, really profound. And then obviously pontificating on and thinking about, the long-term implications of a truly scarce monetary instrument is a really, really big deal. And I was obviously growing cannabis when I first kind of joined the Bitcoin community publicly. And I had a whole list of reasons and life events that like drove me to become a cannabis producer, but I was getting really tired of it, and I was looking for a new chapter in my life. And in some ways I'm still exploring for what that is, but I'm really actually like focusing first on myself. I'm getting right with myself and building that solid foundation and understanding of who I am in a person and what I want to create with this reality. And then prioritizing, health, wellness, family, community. And so, yeah, it's kind of where I'm at in the process. It's interesting because when I first started making videos, I really had no idea what was going on Bitcoin Twitter. I just got onto Twitter, and if I had known what I was getting into, I don't know that I would have made the videos. It's kind of a trip. And
Why?
and why?
Why?
Because I spent a lot of time. I'm pretty introverted, and I spent a long time in isolation. And so it's been really interesting sharing, or like I don't know, putting yourself out there and then getting that reflection back to you from the world around you. And like,
Mm,
I think there's something big there that could be very transformative. And I'm sure a lot of people who create content and get any level of attention can attest to that. It's an interesting introspective reflection that you're getting from the outside world. But I kind of had to pump the brakes a little bit. I was like, wow, what am I going to do with all of the, with the attention that I got, and what's the goal? And do I want to just be some shit talking, weed smoking, pontificating, philosophizing individual walking around a greenhouse? Like, that was a chapter in my life. And so I don't know. I think a lot of us get to this point where we're like, okay, well, what do we do with ourselves? How do we contribute
mm,
value to the world? What's important to us? And through that process, for me, I've kind of like retracted and been like, what's really important to me is that I feel good about my life and myself, and I'm performing as a father and a husband, and then I'll build from there. So I'm kind of in this very unique transition period in my life as I'm like embarking on a new chapter. And then working with Robert and co-hosting the show has also been pretty interesting. He invited me on as a guest in March, which you had something to do with. You referred me. And after we recorded, he's like, "Hey, you want to move to Miami and co-host the show?" Like, fuck, that sounds good. Let's do that. So I went home, packed up all my stuff. I was here like a month later in a rental, and learning about content creation. The whole podcast game is a whole unique animal in itself. I'm sure you can attest to that.
mm.
And so in some ways, I'm getting prepared to go hard on that. Robert is going to be moving to Ibiza, Spain, and he's going to kind of go into quasi monk mode to finish writing his book. And so I'm going to run the podcast for a while without him, which will be fun. But it is interesting. I never thought about interviewing people and procuring guests and, managing a little media business.
Mm.
So there's a lot to learn there. I'm pretty excited to meet and talk to Bitcoiners. Obviously, it's like one of the most fun things you can do once you stumble down the rabbit hole. So yeah, I'm kind of just in a whole new chapter in my life, and in some ways, I'm kind of just making sense of it all.
Yeah, awesome. So many things I'm thinking about. Also, one word I'm thinking about is like alignment, right? It's like you said, like you find Bitcoin, you're alone. You are like literally alone in in this like upstate California,
running around for
Yeah.
years, yelling at the same like 20 people.
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
my god,
yeah,
you guys
exactly.
don't fucking understand how big of a deal this is.
Yeah. So, but I think this is something that a lot of people actually experience, right? And uh, the cool thing is that when you start talking about it, I think it's so funny you say you're like an introvert, right? Because when I saw your videos, I was like, damn, I want to talk like this dude. Like, see, so it's just all your own perspective. But what I really love is that in some way, like you and me and a lot of other people, we feel like motivated to tell other people. Everyone feels motivated to tell other people about Bitcoin when they really get it, right?
Mhm.
But it's like no one wants to listen, so you're instantly confronted with like, okay, well, how much do I understand it? Can I actually have proper words and explanation for what I think this is, right? So you're instantly kind of like running into that friction where you're trying to do something but you don't really know like what, but you are consciously deciding that you want to do that. Does that make sense? Right? Like, and I think that is like the freedom that Bitcoin brings to a degree, apart from the financial stuff. It's like, hey, if I can make my own decision with regard to money, like really having my wealth as my property, that is the empowering part of Bitcoin, I think, right? And then it doesn't really matter how much Bitcoin you have. It's more the fact that you realize that you can actually do that. And then that transmutes to all these other things that you can just do in your life and basically own. So I just think that's really interesting that when you just start, you see that, all these little openings literally present them to you. And then, in some weird way, you're now sitting in Florida.
Exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of us understand the feeling that you get when you understand the problems that we have in the world and how they're related to money or the lack of a monetary solution, which is both like you go through the process. And for me, you get really like, it's easy to get frustrated. You get on social media and there's all this information. You got the Whitney Webbs of the world just talking about how fucked everything is. And you realize you're like, wait, everything's downstream of broken money. And we actually didn't really have a solution to the I don't know, I call it the game theoretic fuckness. Because of the physicality of property, you have this derivative system, and then the incentive is to run a fractional reserve. So what do we have? We live in a world with liars who got away with running a fractional reserve because we had a physical yellow shiny rock that we were using as money to effectively trade and build the civilization that we're in. So when you think about it through that perspective, it on the other side of it, I'm like, oh, okay, like I understand how we got here. Like it makes sense. There wasn't a better way. And now there is a solution we've never had. Like sometimes I refer to the pre-2009 era as the BB era, since the beginning of time to 2009, the before Bitcoin era. The reality that we lived in is fundamentally different than, 2009 and on. Now we have this inviolable ledger. It's effectively, you could think about it as metaphysical property that can't be taken from you if someone kills you. So the incentive inversion is enormous. And then the game theory also inverts to now the prudent, honest market participant who's providing the most value in time will take over the market. And that's a really big deal. I don't think enough people, I just wish more people could understand the implications of this monetary protocol. And so on that note, I kind of went, outside of my comfort zone. I was like, fuck, I gotta make some videos and talk about this. I didn't think anybody would give a shit. I think the greenhouse helped bring some attention to my early rants there. But yeah, it's such a big deal. And it's, I wouldn't say I was ever nihilistic, but until I discovered Bitcoin, I grappled with that feeling of nihilism, like that feeling of like, fuck the world. Something's not right here. It doesn't feel right. The zero sum game that we're playing economically doesn't feel right. I think that's kind of like why I don't know, most of us feel a little broken inside, where we intuitively know that the liars, cheaters, and stealers have some advantage in the marketplace. When you come to the realization that that doesn't work now that we have Bitcoin, that's like a very transformative moment where you're like, oh, wow. So there is something good here. And then to witness the before Bitcoin era and live as like a millennial and get to see we're the last generation that knows what it's like to not have an iPhone. Like Gen Z, my kids, your kid, like they're never going to know what it was like to not have like limitless information in your pocket. So to have the contrast, to go from like peak dishonesty or the end of a paradigm that, as far as I can tell, has existed since the beginning of known time, and moving into a new age. And as far as I can tell, the thing that changed is Bitcoin. It changes it all. And that's I really like Jeff Booth's work. He's one of my favorite individuals. If this thing stays decentralized and secure, what are the implications of that? It quite literally changes everything.
Yeah.
And that's, it's why I say Bitcoin's hope. It feels so good to tether yourself to something that you actually believe can affect the positive change that you want to see in the world. Not to mention that like incentive vortex that is Bitcoin. You're like, oh, wait a second. Like I got to park my money somewhere because the currency is being debased. What are my options? I can buy real estate, some commodities, equities, treasuries, collectibles. It's effectively all you can buy. And Bitcoin's better than all of those. And you're like, okay, so I'm going to buy this thing because it's how I'm going to come up the hardest. And then you get some, you're watching the price. And if you're productive, you're like, hey, I got to buy more of this, or I got to buy something else. It's this like one-way street. And then you start to go down the rabbit hole and think about the societal implications and all the things that we deal with in the world today that are a result of having this Keynesian pseudoscience bullshit,
Yeah. It's so funny to be reminded from time to time how many like things Bitcoin touches. It's so insane that that just this invention, this one invention, can actually like really put up a mirror to everything we kind of like normalized and grew up in, like you said, right? It's just like that is just how it works. And if you go down the rabbit hole of how it works, you can get black pilled pretty quickly, right? Like I agree with you. Like it's when I see Whitney Webb, I think like, okay, 80%, I'm like, holy shit, really? Like, okay, thanks for figuring that out. But after that, it's just so dark, right? I never really hear like a solution. Like it kind of amplifies this future anxiety that fiat already amplifies, right? But then it's like, well, it's these elites and they control you, and c'est ça, that's it, right? And
Yeah.
and like the Bitcoin is hope part, I love, because Bitcoin is still an experiment, right? I see it as like zero or everything that we think it is, like the black hole of value. There's no middle ending for Bitcoin, in my opinion. But although like the left tail risk of going to zero is shrinking, some people would say it's gone, right? Like this future is not 100% certain. So how do you move towards that future while having Bitcoin on in one side, and on the other side, like knowing all the black pill stuff that is just the reality, basically? And I think that kind of like tension where, when you now look on Twitter, I think a lot of people are distracted by the price and they're giving up, and it's like these cycles, it's trading like a NASDAQ stock, whatever. Yeah, it's because no one figured it out, dude. Like no one understands how big this thing is. That's kind of my idea. And that is an actual signal, but this is not set in stone. Like you have to do something. You have to put your energy towards it. You have to, I think, study to keep your conviction. Like every day you're challenged by the question, can I still trust myself? Right? Because you took a decision now and you have to own it. So you constantly, like even more than before when you were just like moving in the fiat world, now you made a conscious decision, which is Bitcoin, which gives you like instant responsibility over that decision, which I think is also something that before that, not a lot of people actually experienced. Definitely not when it comes to money.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I did have a similar level of responsibility. I would say it was a lot harder maintaining my money, growing cannabis for so long, because I had banking impedance. So I had to deal with cash and, I don't know, sometimes large monthly expenses, and hiding the cash was a thing. When I got all of my resources into Bitcoin behind a multi-sig, conceptually, I knew how big of a deal it was, but that when it was done, that moment, I'll never forget it. It was such a feeling of relief. Like I spent so many years of my life, although I'm paying taxes and I'm licensed by the state, I'm a lawful market participant within the jurisdiction that I was operating in. I still had issues with the cash. The cash could burn down, it could be stolen, seized. I got to pay an attorney a bunch of money to get my cash back. So that was an interesting experience for sure. And it really primed me to understand how big of a deal it was to have something that's virtually impossible to steal from you. But going back to like Whitney Webb and the black pill thing, the thing that I think is so amazing for Bitcoin, we can all attest to, is it even though it is probabilistic, you could say, a lot of us believe it's done, it's certain, but it is probabilistic. But it is a solution. The Whitney Webbs of the world, as far as I can tell, I don't know that they're offering up a real solution to the average individual. I listen to Whitney Webb and I'm like, what are we supposed to do? We just all move to Alaska, live off of elk, and run Linux with our own server? And like, what do you do? It's like, okay, we need a solution to this. And I actually, I really wish Whitney Webb would dig a little bit deeper on the Bitcoin thing. She's talked to some Bitcoiners. She's been on McCormick's show.
I think like all corrupted, the bankers, this and that.
Yeah, well, I think she has a point. I do, and it's kind of like what Booth talks about. Like you have a system, an entire system. It's systemic. The whole thing is based upon theft. How is that system going to respond to a inviolable protocol. It's going to attempt through, I don't know, Darwinian self-preservation, if you want to personify this system, it's going to attempt to corrupt it. And I think we are seeing that. And as far as like the price, it seems to be a little underwhelming at the moment. And I think that we're just dealing with fuckery, dude. You know, and I'm not a Wall Street guy. I don't know what kind of games could be being played. You know, Dark Side is an individual, I believe, who I think he said there's, I don't know, like 42 million or something paper claims on Bitcoin. I could be wrong about that, but the idea that there's a bunch of paper Bitcoin, there's a bunch of fuckery at hand. I think that's expected. That and like real money is here, and they're going to play some games. There's a lot of FUD. It's like we have increasing noise at the same time that the signal is increasing. And that's where I think it's really important. And I don't know, personally, I've been kind of going through that process of just getting right with myself and to get a little metaphysical and spiritual with it all. You know, I do believe we are creators of our own reality. I believe in simulation theory, and somehow we're projecting this reality from our fractal of God source consciousness, right? And so I'm starting to think more and more so now, like, when's Bitcoin gonna rip? You know, it's like when we're ready for it. And we're not ready for it. Like, Bitcoin is exactly what it needs to be for where we're all at now. And that's kind of an interesting thing. And it's almost like I don't know, there's a letting go that goes through the process. And I actually would like to talk to American Hodl, which I believe you've had on your show a few times, because he speaks to this really good, the process of like going through the ups and downs and kind of like being humbled and relinquishing control. And for me, I get up on the daily and I have to make sure, you know, hey, is my family healthy? I got responsibilities, stuff to do. And like, is my thesis around the world still something that I believe in? And that could change at any time, you know, like a lot of us, and there's people who speak to it, you know, I even Sailor's one of them. He's like, yeah, I thought it was bullshit. I was wrong. You know, you have to be humble to a certain degree and maintain that humility. Yeah, you know, it's I don't really know. I almost don't know how to verbalize or articulate that experience. What do you think?
Well, I think you're forced to do it. Like yesterday, I had an amazing conversation where Matt, who I was talking to, he explained to me the etymology of humility comes originally from like the word like humus, like ground. So like being humble, being humbled is like grounding yourself again, being put back on the ground, right? Like you are like way off your feet, basically. You're too high up and you're getting humbled, right? And I think my translation is kind of like being high up is like you're how do you say, you're not aligned with what you want to do, right? Like it is not like you're following like your own alignment. So when you're humbled, you get back to that point. But I think like we talked about before, Bitcoin kind of like forcibly humbles you. Like once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And I think every day you wake up and you're into Bitcoin, like I just said, you're forced to, because you consciously understand the decision you made. You're like forced to re-emphasize or reconfirm if your thesis is still correct. And if every day you hear all this fucking noise, right? This elite, that elite, they control you, it's all fucked, CBDC, yada. Like you wake up to the noise, you do have like your anchor that is Bitcoin. I talked about that briefly before we started, but this I now have this idea of like Bitcoin is the only absolute truth in our physical reality, which I think is crazy, right? Like if I verify Bitcoin now, mathematically it's the same Bitcoin that you verify. There's nothing that you can do that with right now. So I feel like Bitcoin is this anchor in this chaos world, which is fueled by fiat money, by the incentives of fiat money, right? And so you found the anchor, but now what? Like you're still in this world, right? I think that's what you're describing. It's like, okay, you cannot really rest or something. You still have to do this stuff in your own life. But I think also, like you said, we are these creators, right? And I do see that we are manifesting Bitcoin in a decentralized manner with all these random people from all over the world that found this like central truth, right? And I think that is kind of like under discussed. Like I don't think it's inevitable. I used to use this meme, right? Like Bitcoin is inevitable, but like you mentioned, this is like the biggest battle that you could enter. It's like changing the technology of money in the world. And the previous technology, it was not like, oh, there was like a brick phone and then like a smartphone came. Like, no, this like previous technologies, like super entrenched in your whole fucking life. and the whole like education on life, your whole paradigm is constructed by fiat money, controlled by other people, right? Like it's not as straightforward as like, oh, this is a better phone, or this is a better like MP3 player, or whatever technological advancement we had in the past, right? Like, or from, you know, writing a book by hand to a book printing press, like that was super clear. But I think the money topic is just so not even misunderstood. Like no one knows what money is, literally, right? Like you learn what money is when you're 6 and you get like coins and bills, and you go to a store and you get a bread and you exchange this thing you got from your parents, and then you're like, okay, well, apparently this is money, and basically you never really think about it again. And I mean, I even talked to people that have like a double master's in economics, and they say we never philosophically discussed what money was. During my whole study, we calculated units, but there wasn't any philosophical talk about what money is, right? So I think this, like the lie of fiat money, the construct of fiat money is so deep that when we want to change it, something better comes along. We apparently see it. We enter this battle that is so far beyond us as this individual. Like I do feel that there should be like more collective energy even geared towards this, because this is like Tuur de Meester says, like this is a war. Like it's a war, because what does Bitcoin do, right? Like you said, the metaphysical part, what I mentioned, the mirror part, like you cannot touch it, but it's still there. The concept is there, right? And it's like a full-on 180 mirror of fiat money. Everything that fiat money is, Bitcoin is not. And so once that exists, and it cannot ever go away, you have something to fight back against all the nonsense that the fiat money people basically spout.
Yeah. And, you know, I kind of have this. So I ate a bunch of mushrooms a while back, a couple years ago. And I was thinking about Bitcoin. And I'm visualizing this, I don't know, like this flat place, this immovable object that you can stand on or tether yourself to in a reality with all of these variables. Everything is in motion. So how do you see clearly economically what the value of anything is if you're measuring the value of goods and services in dollars, but the amount of goods and dollars, or the amount of dollars is always changing. It's that the ruler is not fixed. And I think that creates a lot of confusion. Well, and it definitely creates a whole bunch of unnecessary economic activity where people are constantly moving in and out of assets or stuff to try to figure out jobs or whatever. Yeah. And so that having that monetary constant, I think, is a really big deal. And then, I don't know, like vibrationally, you know, you talk about like Bitcoin is true, and we both look at, you know, that ledger, and we're both looking at the same thing. I think there's something really big there in ascending to a higher state of consciousness, or becoming more aligned as individuals, co-mingling and co-creating in this reality. We finally are agreeing on something, I don't know, I guess you could say outside of mathematics. But like, even if you and I look at the sky, like we might not.
Some people say one times one is two.
Like the tower to the world. Yeah.
I mean,
fair enough.
Might be true. I don't know. Yeah.
You know, it's there's no distortion. There's 21 million units. Mm-hmm. They all reside in whatever these addresses are. It's changing. It's getting updated on nodes every 10 minutes globally. The level in which we all agree to this thing is has more clarity or more vibrational alignment than
Yep.
religion. You know, with all these religions have very common themes, but there's slightly different stories and whatever. So if you think about like our vibrational frequency, as you look at the economy and you look at this reality and you're like, hey, you can take everything on planet Earth and divide it by 21 million coins, like there's a level of signal and clarity and alignment there that, and I might not be putting words to this the best, but it is definitely unlike anything that we've ever had before. And I think that that's very interesting as far as like our consciousness and our awareness, and then the self-reflection and being like humble and grounded and I don't know, man. Fight, and it's also fighting for something that you believe in. I think most people, whatever the statistics would be, like 99 point whatever percent of us are like not psychopaths. We default to doing the right thing and cooperating with others, and that serves our self-interest. We're better off if we don't steal from people or whatever. But you have a small group of people who don't give a fuck, and they do steal. And kind of lost my train of thought there, but
well, a lot of things I
Yeah.
want to unpack. I saw some comments. Someone said we had to calculate differential equations, but never had such a deep discussion as this stream in uni. I'm a master's in economics. See,
Nice.
that's my point.
Yes.
See, and that is
Wait. Say that again. What do you say?
he said we had to calculate differential equations, but never had such a deep discussion as this stream in uni. I'm a master's in economics.
Mm-hmm.
See, so I mean, and that is the point. It's like you. I'll try to tie it back to what you said. You're just doing stuff, right? Like who knows what they're doing in this life, right? Everyone is figuring out. Everyone is winging it, and you have this idea of this path in your life, and you know this guy is going to study a master in economics, and he's just going to follow like this thing exists. I should do it, right? Like everyone is doing something. But how conscious are you of what like how conscious was the decision that you made to do this, right? And like how can you reflect on what you learn and how you can apply that to the world, and if that makes sense, and also what your own ideas are, right? Like it's just, I think, a lot, and you kind of like need time and space to literally become, I think, what you referenced to, right? Like you need time and space to do things and reflect and fail and succeed and kind of like build literally yourself with a space in between yourself. And I think in like a fiat world where I think you said that, well, it's like when the ruler is broken. I thought it was interesting, by the way. I saw another comment like, happy you feel the same. I thought it was a newbie feeling, but this is the essence, right? Like we are still, even after 10 years, I'm still trying to wrap my head around like, what does this mean? What does it mean when you have a broken ruler, right? Because, oh yeah. And someone else said, we agree on the value of our time. And that's a good thing to weave into this, right? Like if I have a value proposition and I say this costs 100 money units, and you say, well, I'm interested, but I want to pay 80. And I say, well, I'll do it for 90. And you say, yeah. And we shake our hand. At that time, only that time when we agree and shake hands, we have this equal exchange, right? So you value my time or my energy and time, my productivity, the same way as how I value it. And then we agree that there's this exchange in value, right? But the fact that there are other people that influence the measurement of that value beyond that point is the issue, right? That's the broken ruler that you mentioned, because after that exchange,
you effectively have a third party involved in that transaction that's meddling with, that's stealing from you. And I think that also creates a low grade state of psychosis where like most people are unaware of I guess maybe that's not the case now. Most people are aware of inflation now. You know, it's becoming a commonly discussed thing. You have the debasement trade and people should buy gold or whatever the rhetoric is around.
I think a lot of people think inflation is the prices go up, but that's because of all these other things that are not money printing.
Yeah. Yeah, but it creates this, I think it creates a low grade state of psychosis. And if you're healthy and a high performer, then you're responding to that. You're incentivized to figure out how to get around that. It's like a Jeff Booth quote comes to mind, where you have abundance in money, you create scarcity in everything. Where you have scarcity in money, you create abundance in everything. And so I don't know. I go through the world, and I'm in Miami. I was just driving back from the pediatric the other day, and I'm looking at all this real estate, looking at all these businesses. And I just got a letter from the state of California for taxes for last year. They want me to send them a couple documents. And I'm just like, look, all this economic activity, all of this stuff that people are doing effectively to figure out how to put their, time and energy in an abstracted form, how they're trying to save their economic energy. And then in addition to that, how they're trying to avoid being effectively stolen from or debased. And then that, the worse that gets, the more prone people are to operate in a zero-sum way against each other. So I feel like we have this invisible hand in some ways that's incentivizing people to behave in a way that they otherwise wouldn't. And Bitcoin is the antidote to that. And it's just so profound. And so simple too. I think about, like, what does the world look like when governments are not stealing all your shit and people have access to food? I'm giving my daughter like this little beef stick. We're getting these, like, I don't know, or grass-fed beef sticks with no garbage in them. This thing's like $3 or something. I'm like handing it to her the other day. And I had the moment of realizing, or like in that moment, it came to me. I'm like, do you know how many fucking people or kids want to eat this, or are at a store looking at food and are like, I can't have that because I can't afford it? Like, that's fucking crazy to me. Like, the abundance that we have in the world today, it's the most abundant it's ever been, but it's just not evenly distributed. Gosh, I would really like to see Bitcoin do what we all think it should do, and there's something very revolutionary about taking on a Bitcoin position. For me, I determined when the Sailor series hit. When the Sailor series hit and I listened to the Sailor series, I unloaded a bunch of gold and silver that I had. I had Bitcoin and gold and silver at the time. Being a cannabis producer, having the banking impedance, I didn't own a bunch of real estate. I didn't own any equities or whatever. And I remember just having the conscious thought, like, there's been this galactic battle between good and evil since the beginning of time. And in some ways, you could say that evil or dishonest market actors have a stranglehold on the global economy. And this is the thing that could fuck them up. Like, I'm all in. I don't give a fuck, dude. I'm going to ride this thing to infinity or zero, right? Like, yes. And if it goes to zero, I will die at the end of my life. I'm going to have to figure out how to make money, go into the marketplace, solve a problem, make sure I can take care of my family. But I will know that I at least tried to do something that has real impact. I think that's something that's, you talk about time preference, and fiat versus, a Keynesian, Keynesian monetary system versus a hard money, Austrian economic theory, that time preference shift. Well, we can actually we have something to look forward to, and we have a real solution to the problems. And then it's that taking that action to really, with a high level of probability, affect the change that you want to see for the future, for our children, for our whatever. And that's just, I don't know, man. It's just such a big deal. It is such a big deal.
I think one of the things that I'm really seeing is that we're kind of like moving back into time. You mentioned Jeff Booth. I have the book here, but the Dutch version, right? This whole idea that technological innovation is inherently deflationary is just radically rational.
Right? Dude, like, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I remember listening to the Booth series, 2021 or whenever it was, on Robert's show. I was working by myself in a grow facility with my headphones in. And Booth says the natural state of the free market is deflation. I'm like, I had gloves on, all covered in cannabis resin. I'm like, fuck, digging my phone out. I'm like, pause. I remember I like walked out and I'm like, it's like, what? New neural pathways wire. It was like cerebral, like psilocybin, and just, I'm like, dude, that's real. Like, why? That is so profound, and we just believe that like inflation is an inherent, or it emerges from the marketplace naturally, or we need the government to expand the money supply as the economy grows.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a powerful moment. Like, wait a second, the natural state of the free market is deflation. So if that's the case, but first off, how is that? Because supply satiates demand. Unless you have some sort of regulatory moat around the sector and the marketplace, your margin is always under attack by other entrepreneurs and capital. The larger the margin, the larger the beacon of opportunity for entrepreneurs and capital to move into that sector of the marketplace and provide that good or service, which is in turn going to bring its value down. So if the free market is naturally deflationary, and you lay on top of it an inflationary monetary system, those are fundamentally two incompatible forces. Like, just that in itself, it doesn't work. Full stop, end of story.
It distorts what would be nature's course, and also true capitalism, by the way.
Yes, well, it's unsustainable.
Yes,
it's unsustainable. You have to hyperinflate, or then there's now let's give some credit to the Whitney Webbs of the world. Or you end up in some tyrannical, I don't know, gulag fucking situation where you're just locked down because everything's going to fall apart. Yeah. And so you can see clearly the deflation taking place if you measure the value of goods and services in gold or Bitcoin. But with Bitcoin, the supply, once we hit 21 million, it's fixed. And that's I remember listening to Saylor's keynote in 2023 in Prague. It was the first keynote he did with slides. He's talking about gold or thermodynamics and half-life. If you're increasing the supply of gold at 2% a year, over 35 years, you double the supply of gold. So you're getting cut in half. So really, before Bitcoin, there was nowhere that you could put your money where you weren't bleeding out at some degree.
Yes,
that is profound. I spent a couple of years of my life walking around just like, oh my gosh, what a big deal that is. Like, how long is it going to take the world to wake up to this? Oh, I don't know.
Man, long time. I think two things here. What you just said is the thing with gold, right? The 2%, 35 years. It's diluted in half. That I think is very hard to visualize for people and just understand that is not like your opinion. It's just math, right? And then what does it mean when something absolutely finite exists, right? Like I think it was the same talk that I remember when something went off when he was talking about like the cube. It's like a I don't know if he says cube. I made it a cube, but it's like a thing with 21 million blocks.
And
like everything of value in the world is represented within these 21 million blocks.
Yeah.
That is so insane. And like, why is that, right? Like, why? And I think that's what a lot of people miss. Like, that is not an opinion as in like that should happen. He's arguing that because this is the best ruler, the best measurement for value, there is nothing else that you can actually value all the other things in the world. Like you said, even if you value it in gold, there's still this adjustment over a longer time frame because gold is diluted as well. So the kind of like natural anxiety you have towards the future, I can die tomorrow. I don't know when I'm going to die, right? Everyone has that. Like, it's still amplified by any other way of measurement of value except Bitcoin, because any other measurement of value is diluted towards the future. So your purchasing power goes down, which increases your anxiety towards the future because it makes your ability to plan for the future less, right? Like, it distorts how you can kind of like have that long-term outlook that you need, I think, to create, as you mentioned in the beginning. Like, if we are creators, we need to have time and space to actually create and fail and learn and then fail again and then try again, right? And so with fiat money, you're incentivized to be a consumer because it's like a hot potato, right? Like
Yeah.
Seb Bunny told me, all the money you have today is worth the most today. That was so profound for me.
Yeah.
When he said that, right? And that is, I think, what people don't really consciously know, but they do feel. They do know it.
But it's also
it.
true on average across the entire marketplace. Equities, real estate. So if your real estate's going up 10% a year and the dollar's being debased at 10% a year, you're treading water. Then you got taxes and entropy, you know, you got maintenance 1% a year. Like, you have paid for real estate in a 1% tax jurisdiction, 1% annual average maintenance cost. You're losing 2%. And so you're going up 10%, the dollar's being debased at 10%, but you have 2% carrying costs or ownership costs. You're back to that 35-year half-life, and people don't see that. You know, and shout out
which is your mortgage also.
Well, yeah, then you add in the mortgage, and it's like you're just...
That was also like 30 years, right? Like
pissing energy into this thing that people believe is an asset. It's really a liability. And what's happening with the house is the same thing that's happening with a car. Like, I'm sure in Zimbabwe or in Venezuela, there's you got inflation at such a rate where the currency is being debased fast enough where a Toyota Corolla is going up in nominal terms as far as that currency. Well, in the States, the dollar isn't being debased fast enough for an automobile to increase in terms of dollars, but the house is increasing in terms of dollars because the currency is being debased that quickly. So it creates this optical illusion. And then, a shout out to Canute, infinity divided by 21 million. That concept is a first with Bitcoin. You could never have all the wealth in the world forever denominated in anything pre-Bitcoin because you have the scalability issue. You can't infinitely subdivide gold, right? And so you're back to this derivative system, which then is corruptible, which is where we're at today. So this is like it's an absolute first for our civilization, and the implications of it are just so profound. They kind of break the brain, and then you like put it back together, and then you're looking at the world through an entirely different lens, and that's very powerful.
I wonder what you think of this. Like, for me, the step from going what we're talking about, kind of more like psychological finance, like financial, to like the spiritual implications of this, right? Like, when you were talking about the Keynesian people, they think you should print money or dilute, debase the money at a certain rate so people are incentivized to spend, and that's how you grow, right? When I realized that they only talk about growth in nominal terms, my mind was kind of blown. It's like the foundation of their philosophy is, well, if the number go up good, right? It's basically the very short summary of their. But they're tricking themselves, right? Because they that number go up good is kind of like the trick to substantiate their argument of the 2% debasement. But the 2% debasement is slow enough for them to steal from you. So while you are forced into kind of like an amplified financial reality, like something that is totally different than what is the natural state, like Jeff Booth says, they kind of like, they offload their own responsibility to fix their own shit onto people who they control, basically. Does that make sense? Like they essentially, in my opinion, that kind of like economic philosophy shows that the people who support that, right? You see sometimes these MMT people, they say like, well, we can create money infinitely. We can do anything, right? Well, they don't even understand the concept of money when they say that, right? Like the fundamental concept of money, and they're just like, well, we can just create it. Like, we'll never go bankrupt. We create it, basically saying like we'll perpetuate the scheme here because we are in charge of the money, and you, little pleb at the bottom of the ladder, you are not, right? But in my mind, they are offloading the responsibility that everyone should take in their time in this life to try to be productive, to add value for people. They're offloading that on people below them and basically amplifying that. Does that make sense? Like, and I think that is where there's on one side the spiritual corruption of us at the bottom, but they are also not aligned, right? So they're basically spiritually corrupt. It's like they take the blue pill in the Matrix, right? They know it's all fake, but they actually create the fake stake in the fake world. Like, and they're content, they're okay with that. But I don't think they are aware of how they're spiritually corrupting themselves. But that's kind of how I think about it.
Well, that brings a Jeff Booth quote to mind where he says there is no they, it's just us, which I believe is pretty powerful. However, I do think there is a group of individuals behind the curtain that are well aware of what they're doing. I mean, they're effectively stealing from the marketplace. Their central banks are printing money and loaning that money into existence as debt against real shit. So they're effectively stealing stuff from the marketplace, you know.
Well, real shit that cost real energy to create or maintain also.
Yeah, well, real estate predominantly is like what comes to mind for me on that front. But I do think there is a evil cabal at the top of all of this that's aware of what they're doing. And I think it's just from, you know, the reality that we lived in. There wasn't a solution to prevent somebody from doing so. You know, I think about, you know, Robert talks about this quite a bit. He just did an episode with Tom Bilyeu, and he's talking about physicality of gold. You got to take your gold to a warehouse. If you're going to go, I don't know, however many hundreds of years ago from London to Italy to buy a villa, you take your gold, it's physical. Some bandits just prick you and steal your shit, right? So you warehouse your gold. Well, the individuals that are taking on that gold, they are incentivized to fractional reserve. That gives them, you know, a market advantage. I lost my train of thought. I'm tired. I got a newborn. You know what that's like.
I think your maybe the word metaphysical helps you to get back on it, because that is actually, you using that word made me understand kind of like the profoundness of that part of Bitcoin, right? And what that implies in not only a practical sense, but in an offensive sense, as in like not defensive, like offensive sense. Like the fact that it's metaphysical allows you to protect your wealth, and actually that is what makes Bitcoin like true property, which compared to the examples you're giving, all these things before Bitcoin were not. They were all abstracts and like trust me things.
Trust me, bro. It's a game theoretic problem.
Yes.
And without a technological solution like Bitcoin, or specifically Bitcoin, the game theory says the individual or the group of individuals that can get away with the dishonesty, they win. They have the market advantage. And that is fundamentally inverted because of the existence of Bitcoin. So I do think that there are pretty sick and twisted people at the top of this fiat pyramid scheme that are well aware of what they're doing. But it's like a runaway train. This debt-based fiat system, it's fundamentally insolvent. And so what's the solution? I almost understand kind of why you have psychopaths like Bill Gates that are like, oh, we just need to get rid of 7.5 billion people. The motherfucker is right from the perspective of like, it doesn't work. What he's looking at now, maybe there's other driving forces, but when you look at the world and you look at our central banking and our monetary paradigm, it doesn't work. Like, it is a fucking problem. But Bitcoin is the solution to that. We don't need to kill most of the people on planet Earth to like gain control and prevent this runaway train of theft and dishonesty from just destroying everything. Bitcoin's the solution to that. You have scarcity in money. The incentive is to hold the money. You know, in this Keynesian lie of like, we need inflation to keep the velocity of money up because people won't spend it, and you'll have deflation. Well, deflation is the natural state of the free market. And how many people do you know? I have a 15 Pro Max dude, new orange iPhone 17 or whatever the fuck it is. My phone works perfectly fine. Even I'm thinking like, oh fuck, maybe I get a new iPhone, right? Like
14 Pro or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a absolute bullshit. You know, you're not going to hoard your money and forego dinner, right? So, I lost my train of thought
Exactly,
again.
but like that, right? Like two things. Like deflation is, they say deflation is bad, but they never finish the sentence. It's like deflation is bad in a debt-based monetary system, right? They never finish the sentence, because if
Right.
they would finish the sentence, they would actually tell you what you're in, right? And then what does that mean? What does a debt-based system mean, right? Like sometimes I see these people, these like PhD finance people on X, and they're like, well, who do we owe the debt to? Well, your fucking kids, dude. Like
we're stealing from the future.
Yeah, you create energy from nothing, which is impossible, right? And you're borrowing it from the future in the now with the, I mean, in essence, the idea of debt, of credit is not a bad idea, I think. But
as long as the credit isn't printed into existence.
Exactly.
If somebody's pooled capital together and they're going to loan it to some entrepreneur in some sort of consensual market exchange, there's no issues with that.
Exactly. So the and that agreement, by the way, is also way more clear, right? Like there would be a certain interest on that money, but that would be agreed upon in like a free market, right? It's like my pitch of what I'm going to do with my company, whatever, has a certain risk level to you as my financier, and therefore you say, well, I need XYZ%, and I freely agree with that or not, because I have a good idea of what I'm going to build and what that's going to be worth, right? So in that sense, that would be a way better agreement. But now it's just created into existence. And I never understand why they don't understand that you're borrowing from your children, because at some point the credit is due, right? Like you have to pay it off. And when you look at like the US debt clock, and you look at I'll pull it up now, because I think it's always so interesting.
Yeah, and I'll share a thought actually that I put.
Go ahead. I'll put it up.
So you have I don't know, Harvard level economists that believe this Keynesian, I don't know, economic theory. And I think the reason that that's the case is you to get to the point where you're like, wait a second, this is bullshit, requires you to admit that at the very least you believed or accepted something that's bullshit. And there's cognitive dissonance there. It can kind of break the brain a little bit. I'm sure you can attest to this. The people that I find have the hardest time grokking Bitcoin or seeing, you know, the magnitude of Bitcoin are people who are educated and successful in our current economic paradigm. They're like, yeah, I don't know. It seems sketchy. I'm doing just fine. I got my real estate. My stocks are growing up 10% or whatever. And I went to school. I paid $250,000, and you know, we need inflation and we need central banking. We need a central authority to control the cost of capital effectively and metal in the marketplace, which, you know, it's pretty simple if you think about it. Like it's economics, you know, and I don't know, I'm just a humble pleb. I could be wrong about all of this, but it's simple supply and demand. You know, the value of capital is going to be relative to the supply and demand. If you have a bunch of unused capital that people are sitting on, interest rates would be lower because you have more supply relative to the demand. If there's not a lot of available capital, interest rates are going to go up. And so you're going to find that market equilibrium. And we are very far away from that currently with this fiat bullshit. And we do live in a deflationary world. You just can't see it until you look at prices through something fixed like Bitcoin. And even today, Bitcoin's obviously the supply is increasing, but it's increasing at a slower rate than everything else. I find this to be an impactful one. I'm talking to people about Bitcoin who are like new to the idea. You can denominate the value of anything and anything. I can denominate the value of my laptop in blue light blocking sunglasses. I can denominate the value of my pickup truck in chickens or whatever. So if you denominate the value of anything in the marketplace in Bitcoin, we're making more of everything else on planet Earth than we're making more Bitcoin. The supply of Bitcoin is increasing at a slower rate than the supply of real estate, equities, gold, all the other shit. So Bitcoin's convertibility into any other good or service is going to increase in time. It's fundamentally that simple. And when you get to it is, it's like,
yeah, but it's hard to grasp because it didn't exist before. I think that's it. Like
I think there's the cognitive dissonance. I don't know. I mean, maybe you tell me what you think, but I think that in order to grok the concept, you have to admit that you were either at least unaware or believe something that was entirely wrong. And some people,
yeah,
it's
again,
the ego death. Some
that's
people
also
can't
why,
handle that.
Well, I think that's also why I really think Bitcoin is also a spiritual thing. It's exactly that, what you said. Like, I had to think of. Oh, you have a thumbs up. That's nice.
Oh, did I do
it? I had to think of the article "Why the Yuppie Elite Dismiss Bitcoin." Right, that's what you, I think, refer to also a bit. Like it's you can be intelligent, but if you have high trust towards other people that you outsourced a lot of things in your life to, and just hope or pray or think they have a certain morale where they won't go against your individual wants, needs, and future prosperity, then God bless you if you think that. But I don't believe in that because, well, fundamentally, I think no one knows what they're doing, right? So if everyone is figuring it out, why should I outsource things in my life without actually properly being informed about it so I can actually make a decision? And I think this is what the fiat money system is based upon to a large degree. It's like, no, of course you put your money in the bank, right? Like, I talked to Ella Huff on the podcast, and she said, I remember when I took my piggy bank with cash to the bank to open my bank account at like 9 years old or 11, 12, whatever. And she was like, oh, I was so happy. Right, I was so happy I did that, and now when I look back, I'm like, yeah, that's the scam, right? Like, that's the whole thing. And I think, yeah, because you just gave your money away, right? And I think this is what is so confronting to a lot of people. This is exactly how I felt when I worked at a bank at 30 with a mortgage, and I had a colleague tell me, did you know the money in the bank is not yours? And I was like, what are you talking about? And then we talked for an hour. He explained fractional reserve banking, and I walked away feeling like an idiot. Like, what am I doing? I have no clue what I'm doing. And I'm here in a bank and I'm doing all these things. I'm even into Bitcoin and I have no clue, zero clue, right? And I think we are lucky that we're wired in a way that it actually makes us curious, or maybe furious and then curious, right? But a lot of people have instant pushback against that. Like, no, that couldn't be. There aren't any other people that would take advantage of me because it's worked for me all my life. Look at me, like I'm, and I love that you bring this up. Like, this is also what the opportunity is, right? Because over time, they will be confronted with the inevitable ending of fiat money, like many other people before us have experienced that. So, like, fiat money is a path dependent thing. Like, there's one ending, like Lynn Alden says, like the train isn't stopping. It's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's why I wanted to put up the like debt clock, right? I was looking for the,
what are we at? 38.4.
I think it's here. Yeah, like 38.4. Yeah, it's wild, these numbers. But I was looking for this debt per citizen. Well, debt per taxpayer, right? So that's everyone that's paying tax. But like debt per citizen, $111,000. I remember first time I looked at this, it wasn't like 87 or something, but like per citizen, which includes babies, right? So when a baby is born, the government of the US is already $111,000 in debt. Not like on their name, but maybe like in their name or something. Like your government already spent $111,000 on something that baby will never even see the value of, right? Like that $111,000 were probably spent on paying off like the interest on other money that was
transgender studies in Bangladesh or something.
Perhaps, bullshit, yeah. Dude. So when you see that, like, that is not an accident. Right, there are people that profit from that, if and that is fiat money, like you said, the zero sum game. Like your baby is minus $111,000. Well, not in real debt, but in like what the country that he was born in actually owes, and he has to work to contribute to paying that off already. Does that make sense? Like, I think
It
that is
does.
so wild to realize that when you then hear these economists like, oh, or like Christine Lagarde of the ECB, like, we have to tame the beast of inflation. Like, it came out of nowhere. Like, no, it's just a logical conclusion, a logical consequence of your flawed economic ideology.
Yeah, well, when you have a money printer, you can paper over losses. I mean, Robert talks about this all the time. So you're not incentivized to be fiscally responsible. The government can do things in the marketplace that a person or entity that doesn't have access to the money printer can't do. If you do something that's not profitable, you eventually will go out of business. It's energy. If you're exerting more energy than you're consuming, you will cease to exist at some point. The problem with our current economic system is you have effectively a group of individuals or a nation state apparatus that can offshore its losses onto the innocent people that are using the currency. And so there's not really an incentive to do the right thing for the long term. And it is like we are shittifying the future through this system. But the opposite is true once you take on a Bitcoin position. Once you understand Bitcoin and you're saving in Bitcoin, the exact opposite is taking place. You can see the deflation taking place in the world. We're also in a special time. I kind of think about it like it's the great demonetization. Bitcoin is going to demonetize all these other asset classes because it's so much better than all these other assets to use as, I don't know, savings or a vessel to project your capital into the future. So, but even once we get on the other side of that, Bitcoin will still appreciate at a faster rate than anything else in the marketplace because we're making more of everything and we won't be making more Bitcoin. So it's fundamentally, it's both so simple, but then unpacking this, it seems endless. You know, like to this day, I mean, it's like you got Bitcoin podcasters like us, they're just talking about this nonstop. It's yeah, it bends the mind.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think this is also why this is such like a long game. This is not going to happen tomorrow. This is not going to be fixed tomorrow. And maybe that's a nice kind of like thing, like a topic to end this on. Like, how do you think about that? Because how I think about this is like, I'm gonna pay attention to this for the rest of my life. Like, I want to see if this thing that I found and this idea that I have around it can actually come to fruition and bring us that, well, like flip in incentives and everything that comes after that to eventually get to this kind of like abundant place. Like, I feel I am perhaps abundant in my head, and that helps me to function in the current fiat money reality. But seeing that change would be super cool, but I don't know if that's going to be in like our lifetime. So I think we're doing it for the kids, but I wonder what you think.
Oh man, I don't know, man. It seems obvious, but I guess in some ways I'm kind of maybe becoming more detached from any particular outcome. You know, like I said, I wake up, take care of what I need to take care of, check to make sure that what I believe about the world still stands. That could change. And maybe part of like riding the cycles contributes to that a little bit. It's almost like having trust in Bitcoin parallels having trust in God or whatever you believe God to be. right? It's this like external force that you almost tether your ideology to. And with Bitcoin, it's so much better than anywhere else that you can put your money. It's almost like I got the Bitcoin. It's like God. It's going to serve me up whatever I'm ready for in that moment, right? It's like it's this full trust in this protocol. I'm like out, it's like daddy Bitcoin is just gonna give me whatever I get, and like I'm gonna be happy with that because there's nothing better. And in that sense, too, it kind of recalibrates you in some ways. And it becomes like it's religious, it's kind of psychedelic. It's yeah, man. It's I don't even know. It's powerful. It's transformative. It's definitely something. Something very unique is happening that's never happened in human history. It's this orange portal kind of sucking everything into it. It's reflecting back to us who we are. You know, it's going to punish you for being, I don't know, egotistical and impatient. It's going to reward you and in the ways that it is, and maybe it isn't, but you're just going to kind of get what you're going to get, and there's not a better option.
I talked to Yoni Appelberg. Do you know him? Do you follow him? Yeah, he calls Bitcoin an economic psychedelic, which I love. Like it is. I think Bitcoin feels like this truth. Well, all the data in the Bitcoin blockchain is basically engineered truth, right? Like it's an absolute engineered truth. Like it's if you verify it, it's the same as when I verify it. So it is a shared truth in that sense. And I also once tweeted something like, I think Bitcoin, the Bitcoin blockchain, like is the Bitcoin ledger is the highest form of ordered information to ever been created by humans. So, and that extends every 10 minutes, right? And as long as it extends, like Jeff Booth says, like as long as it stays decentralized and secure, this thing is just gonna chug along, and its trustworthiness and integrity is only going to grow, right? So the incentive to adopt it is only going to grow over time when this ordered information becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And because that is working in this like positive incentive way, you can kind of like trust that as long as it stays decentralized and secure, this truth will be upheld, right? Like this integrity will be upheld. And I think that's the anchor that you are talking about, right? Like if you know that that is true and it can never go away, then that is actually what gives you a somewhat of clarity towards your future. That's kind of how I see it. Like, and you still have to figure out all this other stuff, right? Your life and provide in your life and just try to develop and all these things. But there is this economic, well, psychedelic, like Yoni said, because it changes your reality, because you have this anchor that you can use to like move forward. You have this anchor of truth, whatever you want to call it. And so you're moving forward with more confidence,
clarity,
clarity than with fiat money, because you know that when you're moving forward on a fiat money standard, you know you're going to get stolen from and basically become less rich or more poor, right? Like that's the whole meme of Bitcoin is not a get rich quick scheme, it's a don't get poor scheme. And that's also like have fun staying poor. It's like if you don't figure this out, you're going to be poor because people are stealing from you like all the time, right? So if you don't fix that, if you cannot challenge your ego and accept that you have no fucking clue how money works, like we also didn't, then yeah, you can have fun staying poor. Like it's the ultimate kind of like responsibility red pill or something before the orange pill. Like you have to accept that you just had no clue and that you have to take ownership. Like everyone has this problem today. It's kind of what when someone asks me like, oh, why is it Bitcoin for millennials? I'm like, well, everyone has a problem, but especially the millennials and younger, right? Like you all have this problem today. There are no social services in the future. There is no pension for you in the future. So my literal money is in Bitcoin. Do whatever you do, but you need to accept that this problem is here today, and you need to figure out why it exists and conceptually grok it, so you can actually start figuring out what to do about it. And whether it's Bitcoin or not is up to each individual, right? But just accepting the fact that the money is designed against your individual prosperity, I think, is just something you have to accept before you can even entertain the idea of adopting Bitcoin.
Definitely. Yeah. What popped into my head that I find to be make me feel quite hopeful about the world and Bitcoin. The same driving force that caused the world to be so fucked, people first serving their self-interest, is the same thing that's going to make Bitcoin work. Now, the difference is now what serves the interest of the individual simultaneously serves the interest of the collective. Yeah. And that's like, these crazy psychopaths that have co-opted the marketplace through this fractional reserve scam. The same driving force is what's going to drive them into Bitcoin. Every once in a while, I think maybe one of the last things that I wrote and tweeted, and I've done it a few times, is Bitcoin's not a threat to anybody. It's a solution for everybody. It really is. Our current economic system flat out doesn't work. It just doesn't. You can't have an inflationary monetary system, a debt-based inflationary monetary system layered over a free market. So we don't have a free market. You have all these capital controls and all these forces and monopolistic incentives and regulatory moats. Like Robert says, if you have a central bank, your economy is half Marxist. It's half market. We don't live in a capitalistic world at this point. We don't, not with central banking. And so, like another quote from Booth I love, it's Bitcoin's the first global free market we've ever had. And I just think that it's incentives. I like Robert talks about this all the time. People respond to incentives. Charlie Munger, show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome. And the incentives are so powerful with Bitcoin. That's why Bitcoiners can seem or sound or become hyperbolic. It's, and speak in inevitabilities. It's like, well, as long as this thing stays decentralized and secure, that incentive vortex is so powerful. Yeah, it's going to suck everything into it. And it's the same driving force that caused the mess that we have today. And I think it's the BB era and the AB era. The reality is fundamentally different. If I kind of think in sometimes like, through the lens of simulation theory, it's almost like creator or whoever created this simulation, and maybe that's us just projecting this reality through our consciousness. It fundamentally changed in 2009. It's not the same reality. It is fundamentally different. The incentives have inverted. We have a solution to a game theoretic issue that has existed since the beginning of time. It's a new world. It's a bright orange future, and I would encourage anybody and everybody, if anyone's listening to this, to speak up, do your part, like share the gospel. And in my experience, one of the things that I found to be the most effective in orange pilling people that I know personally that aren't in the Bitcoin community is just by being fucking pumped. Like I can't tell you how many people are just like, you seem pretty happy, dude. I moved out of Northern California, and the last 5 years that I was there, like farmers are struggling. They're struggling because the natural state of the free market's deflation, supply satiates demand, the value of the commodity that these people are producing is declining because the supply is going up relative to the demand. Meanwhile, their cost of operating and living their lives is increasing. So it's like growing cannabis in Humboldt County was a very special thing that I'm very grateful for, because I got to learn a lot about the world in ways I don't think I otherwise would have. Watched a full-on boom bust cycle and like the mania, and to get onto the other side of that and watch a whole community of people that I lived with for a long, long time going out of business and not understanding what's happening. And then they look to me and they're like, oh, well, you sold your farm, you did consulting and farm management services, you bought some Bitcoin. generally people like, think, oh, well, you got into Bitcoin early, so obviously
You're lucky.
you're pumped. But there's something more to like channeling those good vibes. And I think that's the thing, when you have good energy. I mean, we talk about it like, oh, that guy's got bad vibes. Like when you have good energy, people are like, what's this person doing? Like, I want some of that,
Mhm.
and I find that helps to at least open the conversation.
Yeah.
Being grateful, being humble, share what you believe. Maybe it's not right, but I mean, if everybody speaks up, and Robert says this: you need freedom of speech so your words can go to battle, and die, so your bodies don't have to.
Mhm.
And so I think everybody needs to really express what they're experiencing and their opinions about what's happening in the world, and we'll see what consensus we all find ourselves coming to.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's a great ender. I want to end with something that I think I heard you say for the first time, which is stay humble, stay solvent. Stack sets, right? I think that was you. But yeah, I think this was great. Awesome exploration. I'm happy you're back. I'm happy we get to talk again. I think it would be fun. Maybe we can do a part 2 on
Yeah, let's do another
on
one.
your channel.
When
That's
I
super
have some
fun.
more energy, I'm low on sleep, but
Awesome. Let's do
yeah.
it. Well, likewise here. This is baby baby era, right? But
Yes, minting new Bitcoiners.
we're doing our best. But yeah, thanks
Yeah.
everyone for watching. Follow along, like on X, on YouTube. Follow Eric on X, and yeah, get ready because he's going to be the host of What Is Money. So thanks everyone for watching. We appreciate you, and we're stoked you came along. So thanks, brother.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Cheers.
Pumped.